Welcome to Tuskworks and You. This is part of an ongoing series of deep dives into various aspects of the settlement side of the board game Kingdom Death Monster. I'm Fen, and this is a dive into the second of two crafting locations that come in the Frog Dog expansion. Frog Dog expansion is a little unique in that it has this second crafting location. The Gorm has too, but they're both unlocked at the same time and they're fundamentally very different. This is more like the vignette of Death for the White Giggle-Lion, in that the Tuskworks is based around an aberrant version of the Frog Dog called the Bullfrog Dog. So in this video we're going to look at how you unlock this, look at the resource gathering process and how best we can do that. Take a look at all of the gear and what you can do with it, and then wrap things up with a few thoughts. But before we get any further, housekeeping. Videos are going to remain a bit infrequent for the foreseeable future, health issues, but also I'm working through all 5 cycles of Aeon Trespass Odyssey, and I've got a lot of writing to do for that on top of normal writing duties, so I fit these in as and when I can. They take a lot of work to put together. If you like what I do, the best thing is to support me on Patreon. YouTube basically doesn't pay anything, but that's not really the reason I do these. I do these because I enjoy talking about them. But if you like it, a like, subscribe, all that stuff helps as well. Usual call to action. And that's that. So, Tuskworks. How does one unlock this location? Well, it's actually not too bad. It's right here in this slightly glitched out book. If you have Song of the Brave, when you defeat a level 3+ Frog Dog, you hear the strains of a greater beast's call, and you add the Bullfrog Dog to your quarry list. Bullfrog Dog then becomes available for you to hunt. This isn't too much of a challenge, to be honest. Song of the Brave is a staple. By the time you're hunting level 3s, you probably will have it unlocked already. If you haven't, then either something's gone wrong, or I don't know, you're being a bit hipster. But in my opinion, Song of the Brave is something I want every single time, not just because it's Song of the Brave, but also because it unlocks the ability to get Saga. Saga is one of my favourite innovations. I think it's one of the strongest. Song of the Brave is very strong as well with how it helps deal with the pain of overwhelming darkness. So a very pain-free thing. Killing Node 1 level 3 monsters is not too bad. It's very doable. It's around the same as a level 2 Node 3 monster, so this is absolutely fine. Then once we have the Bullfrog Dog, we hunt it separately, and as you can see, the first time the Bullfrog Dog is defeated, add the Tuskworks to the settlement's location. The survivor who dealt the killing blow gains confidence and thickness in their Gula region. They gain the Bullfrog neck ability, which is like +1 to severe injury rolls. Double your courage for any rolls that take it into account. A really good ability, actually just really good. +1 to severe injury rolls without taking up a fighting art slot or a gear slot is amazing. This kind of things. The rewards here: 4 basic, 8 Frog Dog resources, 1 Black Lichen, Prime Tusk, and Gula Sack. Very important to note something. We're missing, when fighting the Bullfrog Dog, a key resource drop. Well, 2 key resource drops that we need. The first is copper. We'll get into that. But the second is something that drops from the Frog Dog, both the level 2 and level 3, and doesn't drop with the Bullfrog Dog, which is the bioluminescent tonsils. And why is that important? Well, bioluminescent tonsils here is used to craft the Lure Lantern, and the Lure Lantern has 2 functions, well 3 if you include it being a lantern. One of them is to put Noodling of Death event on any hunt space, That'll give us access to currently one of only 2 ways we can get burnished encephalomatter, which is a copper resource, which is one of only 2 copper resources in the game at all. The other one is an indomitable frog dog resource in Survivors of Death, so it's not even in this expansion, it's not on the simulator yet. So this is our only copper right here, this. The other way is via the copperfish den here, which, as you can see, you stick your hand in a hole, archive this terrain, roll 1d10. If you're carrying a lure lantern, you roll 2d10 and add the results. You don't have much control over this turning up. If it does turn up, you really want to have a lure lantern, because 13 plus gives you 2 burnished encephalomatter, and an average roll on 2d10 is 11. So we'll on average get 1 or 2 burnished encephalomatter as long as we have a lure lantern. If we don't have one, we should get burnished encephalomatter most of the time, but it's more likely that we'll suffer this result, which is, there's a very low chance of suffering the no gain result. The main issue is the copperfish den has no guaranteed spawns anywhere in this expansion. In fact, there's no way to draw this out at all beyond just normal chance. So the main benefit, well, the main way that you can increase the chances of getting this is if you're playing with Gambler's Chest, and you have the access to the Facism philosophy. That helps give you more terrain drops, which is kind of something you want when fighting the frog dog anyway, because the frog dog's terrain is very sort of limited in what you get, which is a problem. I genuinely think that the copperfish den should appear at least with the level 3 frog dog and the bullfrog dog, but that's not the design that we have here. So the main thing we've got is Noodling of Death from the lure lantern, which is this. Works the same as the others, the other hunt event things. So sky lure, the pickaxe, bone sickle, gives us another little hunt event, which is kind of pretty much the only way you're going to get copper most of the time. As we can see, look, there's no terrain. We don't get anything extra. If we look at the level 3 frog dog terrain deployment, we only get just this preset mammoth leaf terrain, so no help there, which means we need to rely on Noodling of Death. I talked about this a bit in my review. Noodling of Death is one of the most miserable tables that I've ever had to roll on. The return per lure lantern that you get from this table is less than 1. So what I mean by that is, if you make a lure lantern and you take it with you on a hunt, you should expect to get less than 1 copper from the lure lantern before you lose it. And I'll briefly walk through why. So on the top layer, on an 8, 9 or 10, we get pulled down into clear waters. On a 6 or a 7, we get 2 bleeding tokens and burnished encephalomatter. On 4, 5, we get a random vermin resource, which I don't think is terrible, but it's not why we've got a lure lantern. And on a 1 to 3, we suffer a dismembered arm and archive the lure lantern. So you could make a lure lantern, which requires a strange resource you've gained from fighting either a level 2 or a level 3 frog dog, and the very first time you craft it, you've got a 30% chance of losing your arm and losing the lantern and getting nothing for it. If we just briefly look, clear waters, we can get a burnished encephalomatter on a 7+, or we can choose to go down to Eventide. Don't go down to Eventide. Eventide has no burnished encephalomatter in it at all, and so you have to get to the 8+ result, where you then gain buckle, blood, breathing, and proceed to the bottom. The bottom has a 30% chance of killing you and a 40% chance of giving us 3 burnished encephalomatter. But with Eventide giving us nothing whatsoever, I genuinely think that on these first 2 table rolls, the moment you get a burnished encephalomatter, you just need to take it and get out of there. You can't bother trying to go down to the bottom unless you've already got all the copper you'd ever need. And if you've done that, well done, because I'm not great with hypergeometric calculations, but it's somewhere between 0.7 or 0.8 copper per lure lantern that you're going to get at best. Now, just to briefly praise one key thing about this, something that's super cool is this is finally like a bit more understanding about Slendermen in this event. That's sweet. If we just have a quick look here, a luminescent tendril entwines with your hand, guiding you down. You may decline, ripping your arm free. You escape from the gloom. Gloom being a word that's only been used really before with the Slenderman. And then we can see down here, where is it? This. So if you drift hand in tendril to a soft, fleshy bottom, the water is so dark it sets the colour from your skin and hair. Caressing a protuberance, you begin to squeeze blindly, slipping a freezing fist-sized pebble from between warm folds of flesh. You gain a dark water pearl rare gear, and gain a ton of hunt XP and basically get close to retiring your survivor, which isn't actually so bad if you're playing with dark survivors. But the key thing here is dark water. Dark water is specifically a term used in Slenderman. So I do think that the dark place that the Slendermen are involved with is this deep portion of this section of water. That's cool, but it's kind of it's the only really cool thing about it, in my opinion. I don't understand how this table is so much more miserable to interact with, and also I wouldn't mind if it wasn't compulsory. We don't have anywhere else to get copper really at all, so we have to interact with this. So that said, let's put the complaints to one side and think, what can we do to improve our chances of dealing with this? Well, the first obvious thing is rerolls. So you could, if you're running with Survivor of the Fittest, have a lure lantern on your support survivor who's a red shirt. A red shirt is, Star Trek term. It's a survivor who's coming out to... They're disposable. If they die, it's not too bad. So they play support because you don't really care about them getting weapon proficiency. You don't give them a two-handed weapon, you give them a one-handed weapon. You accept the fact that sometimes they'll lose their arm. That's the simple way to do it. That's like the brute force method, and it can cause a fair amount of turnover as survivors, but it works. The other option is to have the Flower Knight in your campaign. The Flower Knight has a fighting art which you can directly craft, in quotes, via its sense memory event called Otherworldly Luck. Otherworldly Luck gives you a +1, an optional +1, on all rolls you make in the settlement and hunt phase of that particular survivor. So that's another option, is you can have Frog Dog as your node 1 and the Flower Knight as your node 2. There's one wrinkle with that, which is the Flower Knight turns up a lot later than other node 2s, so you'd be hunting the Frog Dog for the first 4 lantern years pretty much exclusively. I don't really understand the decisions behind this particular table, but we do know it is... Oh, hang on, I'm going to have to pause. Our dog's seen the neighbour's dog. Hang on. Sorry about that. A small, cute little wiener dog has moved in next door, and Pam has met her twice now and is already obsessed. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's lovely that she likes the dog, because that's quite important, but I just wish she would not shout so loudly when she's like, friend going past, so especially when I'm recording, but she doesn't know any better. Anyway, copper. So we don't know what the full picture for copper is when it comes to the future, so this might be like this because there's going to be a bunch of other ways to get copper, maybe in the Oblivion Mosquito and the Griffin. I certainly hope so. Maybe copper is the main thing you mine from the Inverted Mountain. That'd be cool, but for the moment this is what we have to deal with, so you've got to interact with this table no matter what, and as such rerolls and anything that can give you extra plus modifiers should be prioritized to try and help this, because it is not good to craft an item and lose it and lose the arm of the survivor who's holding it for nothing at all. So tough table, we roll with it as we can. Now the real difficult area we have to navigate with this is, if we go back to the showdown. So first of all, as I mentioned, we don't get any bioluminescent tonsils from the Bullfrog dog. We don't get this card, these misshapen lumps. So we can only get them from fighting a level 2 and level 3 normal frog dog, one at a time. If we follow the general outline that Ark survivors have, which for those of you who are not familiar with it, Ark survivors have a thing called collective cognition. It's a total that gradually increases as you fight novel monsters. The game will only give you collective cognition points for a certain number of each level of a particular node monster that you hunt. To just walk you through it, you have a page on the Ark Survivors settlement sheet that deals entirely with collective cognition and philosophies, and it gives us the scoring that we get for the particular monsters. So for any quarry monster, if it's a prologue monster, we'll get 1 collective cognition for winning that showdown, and then we get 1 for level 1 maximum, and then we get 2 level 2s and 3 level 3s. So after that, we stop getting any additional collective cognition points, which stymies the progress of our settlement. Not great. So we can see that Team Death have sort of decided the most you should really be hunting a node 1 monster is about 6 times, 2 at level 2 and 3 at level 3. We can do more than that, but we do get hurt for doing so. That's 5 bioluminescent tonsils, that's 5 lure lanterns. On average, that's going to mean between 4 and 5 by burnished in sapphire matter. So that's 4 or 5 copper. Not a great number, but at least we have a baseline to think about. Beyond that, once we're into hunting the Bullfrog doll, which we need to do to get the Prime Tusk and Gula sack plus unlock the Tuskworks, we're not getting any more copper that way. So if we hold that in mind now, 4 to 5 copper on average for a settlement, without spending any rerolls or having otherworldly luck. If we have access to those, then we can probably expect to get maybe 6 to 8 copper. Yeah, so that's kind of the numbers we're looking at. If we come down to the Tuskworks now, if we look, we can see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 copper worth of things to craft here. So we're going to have to be selective, and that's the key thing with the Tuskworks, is you want to have a plan. I'm going to walk through the pieces of gear and discuss what my plan tends to be now that I've got settled in it. But we need to look at the gear before we do that. So let's get to it, shall we? And here we have them all. So armor set, I'm going to go through the individual pieces. I'll talk about the set a bit later. Let me just get my crafting cost up. There we are. Oh, Bullfrog helm. This costs a copper, a waxy dermis, a bone and a leather. Outside of the copper, reasonably cheap. Waxy dermis is right there near the, it's fairly common within the Frog Dog drop, and it's not using either of the Prime Tusk or Gula sack. That's nice. It's all of these pieces have armor set, membrane, copper, metal, and heavy. The keyword is membrane here. That's actually and heavy too. This is a set that's built around like heavy as a keyword as well, but membrane's actually quite important. We'll get to that and discuss the armor set as a whole. It has 7 armor points baseline, which is a really big number. So this is an armor set that the game is encouraging you to get so you can tackle node 4 monsters like the King or the Lion God. And It has a blue puzzle ability with a down facing blue. When you depart with a heavy weapon, gain +6 insanity. So this gives us our very starting design sort of thrust for the Bullfrog set. It wants you to have heavy weapons. Then we have the Bullfrog braces. Note that on the sheet they've accidentally created a blue-red affinity. Just probably a slight error when setting things. It's red-red on the affinities. Again, 7 arm points, same keywords. It's your arm slot. It has a left red and a down red facing affinity, and if you connect either of those, so one puzzle red, your attacks with heavy weapons gain +1 accuracy. This, again, heavy weapons, but also a very important thing, and we're going to discuss parasitic design in a little bit when we get to the armor set and everything as a whole. Don't worry, I'll explain if you're not familiar with parasitic design is. The crafting cost on the Bullfrog braces is 2 copper, 1 leather, 1 scrap. I try and remember to put the crafting costs at the start, but often I get caught up and start talking about the gear card instead. My apologies. 2 copper is very expensive. Sure, it's 1 copper per arm bracer, but 2 copper is a lot, as we've just discussed. Then we have the Bullfrog Cuirass. There's again a printing typo. The armor set on the Tuskworks has a left-facing red affinity on it. It doesn't have that on the card. I always take the card to be the correct version because that's the thing you're looking at all the time in the game. If it gets an update, then that's great. Crafting cost is 2 copper, 1 gula sack, and 1 mossy molar. So this is our first gula sack, and this is 2 copper again. Very, very expensive. It has an up-facing and right-facing blue affinity and a down-facing green affinity, which, if you connect and complete for your puzzle affinity, gives you the extra ability when you depart, add 1 armor point or hit locations for each heavy weapon in your gear grid. So not only is the set saying, hey, have heavy weapons, it's saying, hey, have multiple heavy weapons. Please. Strong ability, more armor points is great. If we just look at this now and go, okay, well, if you're taking 2 heavy weapons in your gear grid, which is usually the max that you want to squeeze into a gear grid, 2 weapons and an armor set, that's putting us at 9 in all locations before we even get to the actual, like, considering if there's a set bonus or not. So that's it's a pretty good ability. 5-10 extra armor points can make a huge difference with breakpoints into how many hits it takes for a monster to chunk you into severe injury range. So very strong, even if it's simple. Bullfrog dress costs 1 copper, 1 gula sack, so that means we're now looking at 2 frog dogs to hunt, bullfrog dogs to hunt at a minimum to get a full set. So 1 copper, 1 gula sack, 1 gaseous bladder, and 1 leather. It has a left and right facing red and an up facing green, so it can connect to the Bullfrog Cuirass. Its puzzle ability is red puzzle and then just red, red, blue. While insane, your heavy weapons gain surpass 10. We'll talk about surpass. I suppose I should talk about it right now. So surpass is a newer ability, and to quote the glossary, which last update was 2 years ago from at the time I'm recording this, surpass X, a gear special rule. When your wound total attempt surpasses the monster's toughness by X or more, the monster suffers an additional wound. So you could look at it as scuffed devastating, because it's not devastating that always works. Still, it's nice to deal additional wounds, even if surpass 10. That's quite a big number to go past, but it is possible. It is doable. And then we have the Bullfrog boots, which are actually, in my opinion, the best piece of the armor set for 2 reasons. This crafting cost is a tatty hide, a waxy dermis, a leather, and a scrap. No copper required. So that's fantastic. They have an up-facing red and left-facing blue. If you puzzle connect both of those, you get, when you depart with a heavy weapon, gain a movement token. Movement is amazing, and this set, when we get to set bonus, does actually care about your movement a bit. So I am really happy with the boots. The boots are very easy to craft. They're always the first thing I manage to get put together when I'm trying to construct the armor set. There's only one negative, really, which we'll get to when we look at the armor set as a whole, and it's not fault of the Bullfrog boots. So that's the armor set, and the big thing to note here is we need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 copper, plus 2 Gula sacks, and a bunch of other resources to construct a complete armor set. So 6 copper is slightly above our average return from our 5 lure lanterns, so we need a little bit of luck to get to that number. And we definitely need at least 2 Bullfrog dog resource fights with the Gula sacks. Okay, onto the weapons. We have 4 weapons total. The first one we're looking at is the Bullfrog Halberd. Again, the affinities on the Tuskworks seem to be wrong. They seem to have been changed. On the Tuskworks, if we just very quickly look, see, they have this layout. That's not the layout that's on the card. It's actually the same with with the Scimitar as well. The Scimitar has the wrong layout. Yeah, c'est la vie. So the Bullfrog Halberd costs 1 copper, 1 prime tusk, that's this drop here, 1 spindly paw and 1 scrap. That's a fairly cheap crafting cost given that the prime tusk is a guaranteed drop from the Bullfrog dog, and there's 4 spindly paws in the deck if I remember correctly, so cheap apart from the copper. It's a weapon, melee, spear, copper, metal heavy, so unlike many halberds, this one doesn't have the axe keyword. It's got 2 speed, 8 plus accuracy and 5 strength. It has onslaught, which is if all your attack rolls hit, you double your wound attempt totals for the attack, and that's how you can get to that surpass 10. It has reach 2, like most spears. It's got longer range. Reach is a very good ability to have on a weapon. If all of your attack rolls hit and you draw the monster's trap, the monster is knocked down after the trap is resolved. This leads into Spear's domain of anti-trap capabilities. A very great ability. The halberd is really good. In my opinion, it's the best of the 3 offensive weapons. This is the one that I craft pretty much every time, because I have never managed to get 2 full sets of Bullfrog armor put together. I always just manage to craft 1, and I'll take the halberd as my weapon, because it's really good. In fact, there is an argument for the Bullfrog Mace, because you could get the Bullfrog Mace if you're just going to use it with lantern armor, which, you know, is fair. I have a preference to spears, and I'm not going to be shy about that. I like spears, but, you know, let's get on to the Bullfrog Mace. It is our club. It costs 1 copper, 1 prime tusk, 1 ironclad spine, and 1 organ. Bit harder to craft with that ironclad spine. There's only 1 in the Frog Dog's deck. That's an iron. So an iron's quite a bit more expensive than just a monster bone in the spindly paw. So this is more expensive. It has onslaught, and its attack profile is 2 speed, 9 plus accuracy, 7 strength. Higher strength, worse accuracy, harder to make onslaught trigger here, but it is a club, and as said, that means you could craft the Bullfrog Mace and run it with lantern armor. However, lantern armor just gets it to an 8 plus accuracy, and I don't think that's good enough. We need a lot of help with accuracy to make things like this and work, and you really want onslaught to be triggering. So I think there's better clubs to marry to lantern armor, like just the bone club. It's pretty much better than this, yeah, despite being cumbersome. But it is, I think, the second best choice after the halberd. Our third weapon is the Bullfrog Scimitar. It costs 2 copper, 1 prime tusk, and 1 oily sphincter. And it's a scimitar without the sword keyword, so it has no weapon mastery at the moment. It's got 2 speed, 8 plus accuracy, 3 strength, and on top of Onslaught, it has the ability when you spend both Knight and Bolt simultaneously, that's your activation and your movement, this game's sharp until the end of the round, so this has to be used alongside something of a monster movement ability, and then it gains sharp. It's terrible. It is absolutely terrible. It costs 2 copper, meaning it is basically twice as expensive as the other two, and it gets to like the highest average strength if you're using it with a monster set movement ability or similar. No. If this cost 1 copper, and if Scimitar Mastery was a card, maybe we'd be having a different discussion. But as it stands right now, there's no reason to make the Bullfrog Scimitar. It costs twice as much, and if we've made a complete Bullfrog set, that's already 6 copper. And a Bull Charge Shield, which we're going to get to in a moment, but is probably the best of all of the weapons in this selection, that's another copper. It's exponentially harder to get every additional piece of copper beyond the like average. It gets just way more difficult. You're reliant further and further on just beating the odds and being lucky. So as it stands right now, just leave Bullfrog Scimitars in the box. Hopefully that changes. Hopefully we get some more of the inverted mountain monsters, and boom, copper. There it all is. I really hope so. I think so. Like, if I was going to speculate, I think that's where things are going. But to base it as it stands right now, this is an easy pass. Don't bother making it. It's not even worth making it to combine with anything else. There's better weapons, cheaper weapons that that you can use with like dragon armor, for example, and it works better. Bullfrog Halberd, for example, not bad with dragon armor. Dragon armor gives +2 accuracy and +5 strength when you use its leap ability. So you know, whatever. Let's move on. Bull Charge Shield, 1 copper, 1 prime tusk, 1 supple nose, and 1 leather. So the Gotcha Nose Shield is just a shield. Has up facing green, right facing red, 1 speed, 8 plus accuracy, 8 strength, so it's perfectly adequate for smacking monsters to try and level up shield if you haven't got anything else better, but hopefully you'd have done the job by the time you get this. It has 1 armor point to all hit locations. Note it doesn't have a static deflect or block ability that you can activate. That's not on here. So by my understanding of the rules, there's no way to normally block or deflect with this, but if you have the green puzzle attached and a red anywhere in the gear grid, then when you spend Knight and Bolt simultaneously, you perform Deflect 1 for free. So that's really good. That is if you do a charge or a pounce or a leap, or if you fire a cumbersome bow or use a cumbersome melee weapon, you get Deflect 1 for free. The Bull Charge Shield, no joke, is the first thing I craft every single time, because it's really good for so many different survivors. Sticking one of these on an archer just gives them so much security. They can sit around and shoot, and they're like, okay, if I get hit, I've got a deflect token on me, just there, passive, fantastic. And again, combining with dragon armor, phoenix armor, bullfrog dog armor, of course, you're just getting this Deflect 1 as a reward for what you're trying to do anyway, which is do those big attacks, usually with halberds and spears, because of reach on them. So Bull Charge Shield, in my opinion, is the best piece of gear in this entire thing, And you could just be like, well, I'm not going to worry about the armor. I'm going to get myself as many bull charge shields as I can afford, and yeah, they're really good. So this is my number one pick and my first craft. It might even be my second craft if I'm not trying to make the armor set, because copper isn't dropping. Okay, then we have our lantern. This is the Heavy Frog Lantern. It costs 1 copper, 1 worry crest, and 1 broken lantern. It is unsurprisingly a lantern. It's also got the other keyword, meaning it can't be used by saviors. Its ability is -1 speed, and all your melee weapons are heavy. This is how you'd use any normal non-heavy weapon with bullfrog armor. That's the reason you're going to take this out. You do not need it on a bullfrog armor survivor normally, but if you've got some special plan or you're trying to save on the weapon costs and you do have this non-heavy weapon, this is available. And also, you know, it's worth noting that things do trigger and get better if like all of your attack rolls hit. So you could also run it to reduce the speed on these weapons in order to increase the odds of it. Just like, say if we put it on the Bullfrog Mace, now it's 1 speed, and that means as long as we hit, we always get onslaught guaranteed. So every single one of our attacks either misses or triggers onslaught. That's a solid use for it. Basically, the problem this has is the same as the rest. It's copper. We can't really dwell on that too much. So for the most part, I don't bother with this, but it is available. It's not bad. It's just expensive. Finally, we got the Bullfrogbble, a tongue twister, item, jewelry, other. This costs 1 stone noses, so that's basically an endeavour, 1 aqueous eye, 1 mossy molar, and 1 hide. The aqueous eye is also used to make the frog dog goggles, so it's a little bit expensive, but you probably have a spare aqueous eye by the time you've reached the ability to craft this. Key thing is, again, this is like the bullfrog boots in that it doesn't require copper, meaning it's just a lot easier to make. Its ability is, if you activate it when you're insane, you spend X armor from one of your hit locations and select a knocked down survivor. They stand and add X to a hit location. So this is a really unusual and rare ability, and it's kind of exciting. Kingdom Death, by design, very rarely gives you access to healing. When you go into a showdown, you've got basically your armor points and your injury boxes. That's the health that you've got. And after that, every single blow has a potential of death. This lets us help out a knockdown survivor by getting them up, but also very keyly lets us transfer armor points. So you can have a survivor who sat in the back line playing it safe. Maybe they're attacking at range. Maybe their job's just to interact with the terrain and use a cat-eye circlet or something, I don't know. You know, some kind of support items. Rawhide headband, probably more likely. Or, yeah, who knows? We got frog doggles. Anyway, it's a support item. And suddenly, not only do we have the ability to get someone to stand up without encouraging, so if we can't encourage for whatever reason, we can still help someone stand up by surging and activating this, but we also have a form of healing. Now, frog dog armor is interesting because you can actually slowly repair it with an inflate, which will let you put armor points back onto it. So suddenly we could add a Bullfrogbble alongside a frog dog armor set, or even a mixed set using the most relevant pieces of frog dog armor, and hey, you know what, we suddenly have a healer. It's been a long time since we've had access to any kind of healer. The last one was Screaming Armor before the legendary card updates removed the ability to spawn a Canthus with a Screaming Armor set. So this is super exciting. I really rate this item. If nothing else, it's cheap and it's interesting. I think that we want to hold this in our heads in the future. Like, anytime we see more things that might synergize with this, suddenly we could really start to put together something unique, an actual honest to goodness healer support could be possible. So that's all the items and weapons and armor. So as mentioned, I think the bull charge shield is like the best. Oh goodness, my neighbour's walking past. I'm going to pause. Yep, I managed to avoid that barking session by pausing. Yes, that's what I was saying. Oh yeah, so I think the bull charge shield is the best gear card in here. I think the Bullfrogbble is very interesting. The halberd is my preferred one of the offensive weapons, and then let's take a look at the armor set. So here we've got our armor set laid out. We've got all three weapons basically sitting in the same spot. The one thing to note here is currently this isn't connected. We need a down facing green. It's sort of, we have to decide. We could do this if we wanted, which, you know, it doesn't look nice, but it is a better way of laying it out, because technically you don't really need this. I gotta get over it, but this is the actual layout you should follow. Now, you'll notice on the side here, I've got the frog dog mask and the frog dog boots. The reason for that is they both have outfit and they have the membrane keyword, which means you can actually have your frog dog mask instead of the bullfrog helm. Likewise, you can have the frog dog boots instead of the bullfrog boots, but there's really no reason to do that because this is super cheap to craft. And frog dog boots need you to be able to replenish your armor points, which is something frog dog armor can do, but bullfrog dog armor can't. So that's a nice thing to note then, is we can reduce our copper requirements by 1, although we take a massive hit on head armor. But suddenly we just drop the price on this if we get rid of the scimitar. Now that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 copper as opposed to 7, which can make a difference. Our set bonus for bullfrog armor is right here. Adds 1 armor point to all hit locations. So if we also include this and this, we could be up to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 armor points on all hit locations, plus we got 6 insanity to help out. Our abilities focus charge, we spend our knight and bolt to full move in a straight line, then activate a weapon to attack. This attack gains +1 accuracy for each space you've moved. So that is why I am of the opinion that this is the loadout that you build. So, parasitic design, let's get to that. What parasitic design is it's a term for when something is created that exists in a game that basically only interacts with itself. Strictly speaking, bullfrog dog armor is not 100% parasitic, because you can use other heavy weapons with it, but it is clearly designed to want and prefer a bullfrog weapon instead. This is because the bullfrog weapons have this naturally low accuracy, but if you hit with all your attacks, they have onslaught to massively increase the strength. So they go from being hard to hit and hard to trigger to becoming easy to hit, and as a consequence more likely to trigger onslaught and secure wounds. The weapons in particular, outside of the shield, which I think can go anywhere, I've tried them with other armor sets, and like I said, the Bullfrog halberd's okay with dragon armor, but there's better options. Lantern glaive, for example. So generally, if you're going with a Bullfrog set, you're probably going all Bullfrog with 2 slots to something else. As just mentioned, yeah, if you can do this along the way, or if you're a bit short on copper, that can squeeze a little reduction right there with a frog dog mask. That's something. Overall, though, this set here plays really well. It is tanky, it is strong, it's superb. It's not exactly a frontline armor set. It's got all the points for it, but it kind of wants the monster to not be next to it at the start of a turn so it can focus charge into the monster. Without that ability to focus charge, you do kind of lose a little bit of your accuracy and potency overall. But you can stupidly just focus charge into the monster Like, even if you're next to it, you just don't go anywhere. You don't get any accuracy bonus, but you still get a weapon attack and you trigger the bull charge shield. So at no point ever are you unable to get the bull charge shield up and running. You're just kind of like a computer game character dashing into a wall over and over. Yeah. But silly as it looks, this is really powerful. So that's the bottom line. All of this agonizing pain of squeezing the lemon creates a juice that's actually worth it. This is a really good set, but I don't think you ever craft more than one set in our current play environment. And I think if you do, that this is your focus of everything, and you almost certainly are going to be making a Bullfrogbble as well, because it's just not too expensive. You know, like, it doesn't even need a Gula sack or anything. This is all just cheap things, apart from the eye being a slightly rare drop. So yeah, that's it. That's the Tuskworks, and I'm going to wrap it up because I'm recording this on the very day that I'm editing it and uploading it to my patrons, because KDM Simulator was down for the past 2 days and caused me a ton of have to reschedule and reorganize everything. The joys of having something being always online, even if you want to access it single player. It's not ideal, but you know, it is what it is. Anyhow, that's the Tuskworks. That's how you unlock it. That's what you craft. That's my opinion of the stuff you should craft if you can afford it. My name's been Fen, and thank you to my patrons, especially my pillar patrons and above, who help make these videos happen, because they take a lot of time and effort to put together. And thank you to you for watching, and happy hunting.